David talked about the importance of verbal behaviour, so now I'm going to share with you some of the verbal behaviours that we found to be effective and ineffective when it comes to negotiation. So moving on, I want to now look at ways in which you can disagree. So often in negotiation things can get quite heated and the two sides can disagree with one another. So in our global survey, we gave respondents different options in terms of what they might say when they wanted to disagree with the other side. And this is an example of something that you could say in terms of when it comes to challenging the other side in terms of what they've just said. In Huthwaite, we call this behaviour testing understanding. And testing understanding is basically a behaviour that you use to clarify whether what you think the other person has just said is exactly what they meant to say. We can use testing understanding in two different ways. First of all, it's an incredibly important behaviour when it comes to clarifying your understanding of the other person. And it helps to avoid miscommunication and misunderstandings in any type of conversation. The second way you can use it is like we've just used it here in what we call incredulous testing understanding, which is when you're kind of like saying you're really challenging the other person. And what we find when we present this behaviour to people is often they balk at it. They think, I don't like that behaviour, it sounds aggressive, it may even sound patronising. And that's what we found in the global survey, that actually overall very few people said they would use that behaviour in the negotiation. But actually there is a big difference between the successful and the unsuccessful again. And the successful people are far more likely to use it than the unsuccessful. Going back to the original research, when we looked at the levels of testing understanding between the skilled and average negotiator, you find that on average skilled negotiators used it 4.1% of the time. But skilled were using it twice as much. And they were using it to achieve clarity, and they would also use it in this incredulous way if they wanted to disagree with the other side as an alternative to just disagreement. Moving on, another way of disagreeing is this example here, where you start with a negative, I cannot accept, all right? It's straight away you're putting the message across to the other side that you're saying no. And then it's going on to hint at the fact that you're going to give a whole list of reasons as to why you say no. There are two behaviours incorporated in this example, which the first one is called labelled disagreement. Labelling, in our terminology, is when you use a behaviour that indicates to the other person what you're going to say next. So if I say, can I ask you a question? I'm indicating that I'm going to ask a question. That's an example of labelling. We found that in negotiation, labelling is a behaviour that's used by skilled negotiators, apart from when they want to disagree, when they want to say no. And then we found that skilled negotiators were far less likely to say no up front. They were more likely to give a reason for the disagreement before they said no. The other key point is this thing we call argument dilution, all right? So argument dilution is where you give lots of reasons to support your case. And looking at how popular this behaviour was, actually it was more popular amongst our respondents than testing understanding, even though we would say it's not as effective. But again, the successful people less likely to use it than the unsuccessful. And just looking at argument dilution on its own, going back to our original research, looking at the number of reasons given by skilled negotiators as opposed to average negotiators, you'll find that average negotiators on average gave 3 reasons to support their case, whereas skilled gave 1.8. So they're giving much fewer reasons to support a case. And the reason for that is the more reasons that you give, the weaker those reasons become, so the easier it then becomes for the other side to attack those reasons. And to support our research, our quote from an ACAS representative that we heard on Radio 4 earlier this year, and he was talking about the negotiating tactics of the late Bob Crow. And one of the things this ACAS person said is one of the key skills that Bob Crow had on the negotiating table is that when he gave a reason, he only gave one. Whereas other people they saw at the negotiation table gave lots of reasons. And, and that was cited as part of Bob Crow's success. So The thing with argument dilution, if we're looking at it from a training perspective, if you go back to school, and if you think about how we're trained in school, we're actually trained to give lots of reasons as to why something's happened. The classic exam question, explain the causes of the First World War. Our whole education system teaches us to give lots of reasons, to give lots of arguments. So when we come to negotiation training, one of the things we have to consider as learning professionals is how can we get people to unlearn some of the tactics that they've been taught in their previous education experiences.